guys, my name is Julia and I am the owner of Julia Noel Weddings. That's Cooper. He's probably going to come in and out. He might magically disappear if I have to cut a scene, but I figured why not let him join in on the action today. If you're new to my channel, I do weekly videos to provide brides with tips, tricks, advice, and anything that you might need to plan your wedding. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I didn't want to stick to a script or give you guys educational content, primarily because I can't get through it all. So I reached out to my audience and I asked, what are the burning questions? What do you guys want to know? Okay, here we go. Without any further ado. First question comes from Carly. She says, catering, OMG. Please give me advice on DIY catering. I can even get set up in servers, but I want to consider DIY, or tell me no. It is the only thing I'm having issues with. I have excellent catering options and they are reasonable and I don't know why I'm having a hard time. Well, Carly, I have so many thoughts. So I don't know exactly what you mean by DIY catering, but I'm going to assume that you mean cooking the food yourself and having either a potluck or having friends and family bring the food. Listen, Carly, I am very similar to you. There's something about the pride and of the accomplishment of I did this or I did this by myself. But we can't always get hung up on that because it's your wedding day. This is the day that you're supposed to be stress-free and just enjoy yourself. So, bye Cooper. If you told me that your family is like a line of chefs, or you're a chef, or the food has special meaning to you, then I would say, girl, do it. Like, if that's gonna make you excited and happy, that's what this is all about. Go for it. But if you're just like, I want to do it because I want to do it, I'm on a budget and that would be a cool challenge, then I'm gonna tell you right now, don't do it. If you found reasonable catering options, let someone else do the work for you. Let someone else take care of all of it because it's your wedding day and it's meant to be exciting and stress-free for you. Now, another thing that you can do, Carly, if you want to save costs, like if budget is a concern, and the reason why you're even considering DIY is because your excellent catering options are still on the pricier end than you want to spend. What I would say is maybe don't do DIY like cooking the food yourself, but maybe find you and your fiance's favorite restaurant to cater and their cost per plate is probably a lot less. And then you can still hire setup and still hire servers separately, but because the cost of the plate will be extremely less because you're not hiring a company to do the whole thing for you. And that could be a nice compromise if that's something that you would consider. I have a bride right now who is doing a micro wedding and she told me that her and her fiance have this favorite taco place. And so they asked their local Mexican restaurant to cater tacos. Freaking love it. Like, that's amazing. Like that is special to them. That has sentimental value, but it's still kind of like a DIY solution because they're not hiring this catering company to do everything for them. That is another solution for you. So hope that was helpful, Carly. All right, who is next? Okay, so now we have Kimberly. Kimberly is asking how to have an elopement with a small group with a DIY reception. Okay, great question. I am actually working on this with a client right now, so this is fresh in my mind and I have tons of thoughts. I could do a complete video on this too, and maybe I will one day. Lots of content to get through, but what I will say is on a high level, I can give you some tricks and tips to consider as you investigate this route. Bye, Cooper. It's not much different than a regular full-sized wedding. You still want to make sure you have your budget. You still want to create a list of the things that you want to include in your DIY reception. The best way of doing a DIY reception is a backyard reception. I love backyard receptions. I think that they are so intimate and homey. There's something magical and whimsical and romantic about a backyard reception. I would even argue a ceremony and reception can be in your backyard and still be beautiful. Now, when you are doing a backyard wedding, you need to consider weather because you probably don't have a complete canopy over your backyard. Most people don't. So you'll need to make sure that you look into rentals. The big difference between hiring a reception venue versus doing it DIY is that the reception venue usually includes a lot of things that you typically wouldn't even think of. So food, who's going to cater it? Are you going to have your favorite restaurant cater it, or are you still going to hire a catering company to come to your backyard, for example? So think about food. Then think about rentals. So inquire about tents, chairs, tables, linens, silverware, place settings, plates. That's kind of the big stuff. Decor. These are the things that a lot of venues include in their pricing. But if you're doing a DIY reception, that might be something that you need to outsource on your own. Now, a small ceremony. My husband and I just eloped a few months ago, and we wanted to get married on the beach. We found a venue that allowed us to stay the night there. We got married literally on a rock on the beach, which was beautiful. You could find places that are public that you can elope at. You just have your photographer or your officiant or whoever you want to accompany you to that location, and you get hitched. It's really fun. So Kimberly, I hope I answered your question. Short version, if you're going to elope with a small group, you just got to find a place that will let you have a ceremony on that site. You know, if you need chairs, make sure you get chair rentals. Depending on where you're located, reach out to your local area. I'm sure in COVID-19 time, there are tons of venues that have created micro ceremony or elopement packages specifically to fit this need. So feel free to reach out to them. But don't underestimate the beauty and romanticism of a backyard ceremony and reception. Okay, so next question is from Claire. Claire is asking, DIY linens and decor versus renting. Is the price difference much? Definitely a lot of options here. So great question, Claire. When you say DIY linens, I'm assuming you mean either going to a thrift store and buying them. I've never personally experienced someone sewing or creating their linens. I would imagine that would take an incredible amount of time, so I would probably stray away from that route. However, if you go thrifting, if you're anything like me and you like the unique type feel, you don't necessarily need every single table to look exactly the same. You could go to Goodwill or your local thrift shop and buy tablecloths, and maybe the tablecloths are all a little bit different, and then you might be able to get the linens for $1 or $2, right? And then have different linens and table, you know, on each table. That could be a really great way to save costs. Now, keep in mind, you'll get stuck with that inventory later anytime you purchase. But there are tons of places on Facebook or anywhere where you can resell your wedding supplies, especially if you are taking photos of what you used it for. That will help other brides be able to visualize what they can do with the stuff that you purchased. And then you can recoup your money. In theory, if you purchase everything, you could recoup all of your money if you sold it for the same price that you purchased it for. So don't underestimate the cost savings with purchasing your linens, your decor. Just understand that it's not a guarantee that you'll be able to resell it afterward and you might be stuck with it at the end. Now, if renting is an option for you in your area and you found a company that's willing to rent, I would just price shop, because some companies have already recouped the costs of the item that they're renting to you, and it really won't cost them much to rent it to you, so they could give you a really good deal. Other companies, you know, are a little bit more pricey when it comes to renting supplies, because they are targeting the type of bride that doesn't want to have to worry about reselling it afterward and just want something to be simple and easy. So weigh your options. You know, what kind of cost savings are you looking for? Your time is also a huge cost, and anytime you're DIYing anything, it's going to take so much time. If you are DIY doing linens and decor, who's going to set it up? If you don't have a day of coordinator already or a setup crew already, you not only have to create the decor and purchase and source the linens, but you also have to have someone set it up. So weigh that cost, weigh that option, because when you think about the amount of time that you're spending to source the linens, and you think about how much, you know, the setup might cost if you have to pay someone to set all that up, that might not be worth the cost of your time and effort versus renting from a company that's willing to do all the setup for you. Okay, so lots of options for DIY linens and decor. Okay, so Sam wants to know, what is the average price for a dress, flowers, photography? Again, I want to touch on this on more of a higher level because budgets can be tricky. Every area in the country has a little bit of different pricing. So keep that in mind, because there's no perfect formula for how much these things cost. So you will need to do some price searching in your local area. So a dress can range from a few $100s all the way to, if you've seen, what's that show? Say Yes to the Dress. If you've ever seen Say Yes to the Dress, which I have, and maybe one day I'll do a reaction video, I've seen dresses go for like $50,000. Like, blows my mind how someone can spend $50,000 on a dress. I just cannot even fathom. But that goes to show there's a really big range, right? So I'll put it here. My dress that I bought for my elopement right here is from Etsy, and I spent, get this, $300. That's it, $300. Now, it was handmade from this Etsy shop. It was beautiful. From a cost perspective, it was a bonus. Now, my wedding dress, I won't put here because my husband hasn't seen it yet. But if you're interested, I can message you the photo. I bought it from a local bridal shop. I bought it from Julie Allen Bridals in Newtown, Connecticut. They're amazing. And it was $1,500. Any bride who has had this moment will be able to relate. But when you put the dress on, it's the feeling that you get. It's not even the dress itself. It's the feeling that you get seeing yourself in the dress. So with that said, a lot of bridal shops know this, and they actually won't put you in a dress over your budget because they don't want you to be in a situation where you need to cough up additional $2,000 because you fell in love with the dress and started crying hysterically in a dress that you can't afford. So if you know your budget for a dress, just know you can get a dress off of Etsy, which can be beautiful for a few $100s, or you can go to a bridal shop, spend a few thousand. Flowers. So I personally did DIY flowers for my wedding, the wedding that got postponed. So I made my own flowers. So I didn't spend all that much money. It was maybe a few $100s for the supplies and then tons of time. So I don't even know how to put a price on my time. So I was able to save costs there. Actual florals, I've seen quotes, in the thousands, 1,000 to 5,000. There's so many factors with flowers. There's just such a range. It's so hard to say. So you need to identify what floral arrangements you need. And talking to florists will help gauge that and be able to help you understand what your options are, especially if you already have a budget specifically for florals. And photography, again, tons of ranges. I've seen photographer quotes anywhere from $1,000 all the way to $5,000. It can depend on level of experience, how many weddings they've done. It can depend on how much editing time they put into their photos. So usually lower cost photographers don't have as much editing that goes into their photos. Are there two people at your wedding? What kind of equipment they're using? If they have more expensive higher end equipment that has a higher quality photo, that might end up being a higher cost than more of a beginner photographer that maybe has less expensive equipment. So again, so many factors. So it's really hard to identify what a budget is for these things. So create a budget that has everything, every single vendor, every single detail that needs to go into your wedding. And you need to determine what is important to you and what your priorities are. So many ranges. So you need to determine what's important to you and how much you're willing to spend for these vendors, and then stick to your budget. Okay, next question. I'm actually gonna go to Cassandra's question next. So low budget wedding, she's sticker shocked. Yeah, Cassandra, I totally feel you. The entire wedding industry in general is expensive. A lot of photographers will come back with thousands of images and you might only see 900, but they've probably taken twice as many or triple the amount of photos that you're seeing that they need to sift through manually. So that can be really time intensive. And then they're editing all the photos that they actually give you. So that's definitely one reason why photographers can be more expensive. I personally value photographers a lot because when the wedding day was all said and done, I can look back in 10 years and look at my photos. If photography is not as important to you, you probably don't have to pay the high-end price in your area. You can probably go with a lower end cost. You can also find someone that has a lighter editing style. Maybe you don't need the second shooter, maybe you just need one. Maybe you only need a few hours of coverage. Maybe you don't want them to stay through the reception, and that could be another way that you can save costs. If you're one of those people and you're like, I could care less if I have photos at the end of the day, then maybe you should hire a starter photographer, or someone out of college, or someone that's just building their portfolio who's just starting out in the industry. That way, if something happens or they don't fulfill your expectations, you really didn't have expectations to begin with, so it's okay. But if you're someone that's like, I need amazing photos, then I would say don't skimp out on the photography. Find someone more in the middle than the high end range, but don't get someone that is just starting out either. I feel you on the sticker shock. Every vendor has a lot of expenses that they have to cover that people don't even think about, but at the end of the day, you have to determine how important photography is to you and whether or not it's worth the cost that you're seeing. And then last question, also photography related. Pros and cons of a first look and your recommendation. This question comes from Presley. So I used to not like the idea of a first look before I got married. I was like, first look, like I want my husband to see me for the first time walking down the aisle. Like I don't want a first look, that'll take it away. If that's how you feel, I totally understand. But I do want you to think about it from a logistics perspective. If you have a big bridal party, or there's a lot of photos that you want to take after you see your husband and you get married, you have a very small period of time to take all those photos. Your eyes are probably gonna need touch-ups, your makeup's probably gonna need touch-ups because you've been crying because of the ceremony, it's emotional. You're not gonna have that much time to take all those photos in that 1 hour of your cocktail hour. And then don't you want to enjoy your cocktail hour? That's your moment where you can mingle with your guests and talk to your guests. Even lighting. If you have an evening wedding and you are getting married at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and let's say it gets dark, you're gonna take photos in the dark? Are you really not gonna have any natural light for your photos? Some weddings, it can be rushed. Your timeline is like, listen, you have to hightail it to the location you're taking photos. So take that into account too. I'm definitely all for a first look. Your husband will look at you the same way down the aisle, because let's face it, the ceremony will still bring on all of those emotions because you're about to get married. So there are tons of brides that are like, listen, we had a first look, he still cried down the aisle. If anything, you get to have 2 moments. So go for the first look. Hope that was helpful for you guys. If any other questions come up, put them in the comments below. I would love to help answer any of your questions in the future. All right, guys, that is it for today. I just can't with him. And if you found this content helpful, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It'll ensure that you get updates anytime new content comes out. So, oh, now he's sleeping. Oh my God, he's so cute. I will be putting out new videos each week, and I cannot wait to share more wedding tips, tricks, and advice with you all. Until next time, happy wedding planning.